Hi, welcome to the intro video for our prayer series centred around God's loving gaze. This is just a few practical things to think about as we go through this series together over the next 8 weeks. The first is prayer position. Now, this might be helpful for some of you, it might not for others, and particularly from some of the exercises that we're going to be doing, it's more helpful to sit in a particular prayer position. So generally, I'll use words like coming to stillness or finding a prayer pose or something like that. And what that means is just assuming a position of prayer, whatever you find helps you to physically enter into the presence of God. A sort of standard way of doing that is to sit on a chair, letting the chair take the weight of your back and your knees being slightly lower than your hips and your feet being flat on the floor and your hands just resting gently in your lap. I like the quote that I've read, I can't remember where, that says to sit in a position that's comfortable enough that you can stay there for a prolonged period of prayer, but not so comfortable that you fall asleep. So I don't like to have my head resting on anything because I find that I'll nod off. Repetition. Each video can be used as a prayer of repetition, with there being a new video available each week for 8 weeks. You can use the first video on for the first week, and then the second one for each day of the second week, and so on, or as much as you are able to throughout the week. This doesn't mean that we're replaying each whole prayer time or going through every detail of each passage or prayer exercise in exactly the same way again. Each time you use the same video, we can then return to a word or image, a feeling or desire, an area of resistance or movement of the heart that stood out strongly the first time that we prayed with it. It allows time for the experience to be digested and for God's impressions on your heart to be made in a more thorough way. The prayer of repetition has been described like an experienced fisherman who knows he can go back time and time again to the same fishing spot and that he'll find fish there. The spot never seems empty of good fish, but he gets a new one every time. I'd mentioned lingering a lot in the videos. Feel free to linger. Remember that they're videos, you can pause them, you can come back to them at a later point in the day if you get interrupted. Just feel free to take whatever time you have, and even if you don't make it through the full thing in the time you've got that day, linger on the part of the video that feels most alive to you. Feel free to just take the bits of the video that have been really helpful to you and use them instead of listening to the same video every day of the week. If you'd prefer to just sort of take some notes on what the exercise has been or what scripture we're focusing on or some of the questions that I might be encouraging you to ask, or just take a few notes and you can just come back to those things if you don't actually want to sit through the same video every day. That works too. Journal. You may want to journal, you may want to write, you may want to draw, you may want to just write down a piece of scripture that stood out to you. Anything that represents the things that have felt significant to you. I would encourage you though to leave it until after your prayer time. Resist turning this into an intellectual exercise. It's hard to have a conversation with somebody when they're busy taking notes, and God's desire is to speak with you. Look back on the prayer time, that's another thing. You could sort of let the prayer time finish, you could go and have a cup of tea or coffee, or you could see just what stays with you from your prayer time over the next coming hours or the next day, and then sort of retrospectively journal. That way it helps you then to hone in on, is what I've written down here. It helps you to hone in on the essence of how the Trinity are moving in you, instead of it just being a very long dialogue of what's happening in that moment. Sometimes it's helpful to reflect back. Another note is about noise. Part of this is about experiencing God in the everyday, in your everyday, and what that looks like. We live on a main road. There may be a bit of traffic noise in the background of the videos. That's just part of what my prayer life is like, and maybe I've come to tune it out. You might hear some of it too. I did stop some of the recordings when particularly noisy ambulances went by, but just thought I'd mention that because it is right there. So none of these things are hard and fast rules. Hopefully they'll serve as some gentle guidance. You may find other things helpful, or some of this just might not be helpful at all. What matters is that you're making yourself available to God in whatever way that feels natural, for the unique way that you have been intentionally made. If you're not sure, some of these suggestions are a good place to start. May God bless you as you journey into his loving gaze.